Welcome back to Up North at 4. We now welcome Benji Backer. He's a conservative climate activist. He formed the organization, the American Conservation Coalition. He spoke before Congress. He spoke on CNBC, Fox News. But more importantly, Benji, you and I were on the same tennis team together at Appleton North High School. Benji, welcome to the program.
Great to be here with my former tennis colleague, and the only thing better than being on this show with you would be hitting the courts with you, but we'll take this for now.
Another time, we'll keep that. I'll keep that in my back pocket, so the challenge is on. But let's talk about the American Conservation Coalition, your story. Tell us about how this came to be, this organization came to be.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I spent my weekends every summer in Minocqua, Wisconsin. And I grew up, the environment was my passion. I loved being outdoors. I loved being at the lake, and kind of the peacefulness and the amazing wonders that surrounded Lake Minocqua and the entire Northwoods area inspired my love for the environment. But I was also really passionate about politics, and I got active in Wisconsin politics in the 2010 midterm elections, and then every election after that. And what I realized is that even though I was a conservative activist and active on Scott Walker's campaign, Ron Johnson's campaign, and some congressional folks and state legislators, I was very frustrated with the lack of environmental conversation that was happening within the conservative movement. And as an environmentalist, I always thought, why is it only one side that has a part of the story, and that one side has a seat at the table? And as a young conservative, it mattered even more to me because I have multiple decades to see these environmental problems continue to get worse on the current trajectory. And to fix anything, I knew we needed to have conservatives at the table, and that conservatives needed to have their own voice in the environmental movement. So what I did was I founded the American Conservation Coalition, which I started in 2017. And fast forward about 4 years, we're the largest grassroots, membership-oriented organization, right of center, that is focused on environmental results. And we do a lot of work on climate change as well.
So you do a lot of persuading people, right of center, about why they should care about climate change. It's no surprise that Jeff and I were in Rhinelander right now. The Northwoods is a conservative area. What would you tell the conservative viewers about climate change and why we should care about this?
Look, first of all, conservatives and liberals care about this planet. We care about the environment, and I think that we need to start putting the environment back into environmentalism again. We need to start focusing on the issues that are facing us in our own backyards. And in the Northwoods, there are a lot of issues that have been very prevalent over the past couple of decades. So let's make climate change about the Northwoods for a second. If the United States and the globe's emissions are having an impact on forest fires that are reaching Minocqua in terms of the air quality and the impact of the Northwoods, the fact that we could reduce our impact on that is going to not only save money and help tourism, but it's also going to help our environment and our health all in one. The solutions don't have to come from big government type policies. We can have a balance between economics, job creation, and lowering our human impact on the environment. And so while I understand a lot of the skepticism that conservatives have had on climate change, because I've been there myself, there's also the reality that if we clean up our environment, the best case is that we stop climate change and clean up our environment. And the worst case, if climate change so happens to not be real, is that we cleaned up our environment. But we can do that in a way that is economical. It doesn't have to be government first. It doesn't have to be imposing regulations on people or raising people's taxes. In fact, fighting environmental challenges and fighting climate change specifically is economically smart, and it's smart from an environmental perspective as well. That's why conservatives need to have their voice at the table, and even skeptics need to be part of the conversation.
All right, let's talk legislation here for a moment. You said you want to put the environment back in environmentalism. One could argue the Green New Deal would do that. You're against the Green New Deal. How come?
Yeah, I think the Green New Deal, as AOC, her chief of staff once said, is not about the environment at all. It's about overhauling the economy. And I think that's what a lot of people in the Northwoods, in Wisconsin, and across the country are sick of, is that these environmental policies don't really have as much to do with the environment or fighting climate change as they do really looking at it from an economic perspective and trying to push America towards a more democratically socialist or socialist ideology. I think we need a much more balanced approach that stands up for all communities in the United States, that stands up for the business communities, the different geographical regions, and also puts into place smart safeguards to lower emissions here in the U.S. The Green New Deal does not do that, and it's honestly just a pipe dream masquerading as a policy. There is no specific policy behind the Green New Deal. There isn't a bill. It is just a resolution in Congress. It has no chance of passing, and it would cost trillions of dollars. And so while every day that we're talking about the Green New Deal, we're missing out on opportunities to talk about realistic solutions that most Americans could get behind. So the size of the problem of climate change and environmental issues is serious, but the Green New Deal is a waste of our time. And it's, again, not about the environment. And we have to start putting policies first that prioritize the environment instead of some sort of other political wish list.
So the IPCC just had a report, Code Red for Humanity, when it comes to climate change. Do you think that your methods that you're proposing, limited government approach to tackling climate change, will that be what we need? Do we need to go further than that? Will we need to take drastic action?
We absolutely need to take rapid action, but the only way to start with rapid action, as we've seen throughout history, is to start taking steps in the right direction. And if we're just waiting on some perfect policy or a one-size-fits-all policy, we're not going to get there. We need to start taking steps. And during this Congress, our organization helped pass the only bipartisan climate bill that has been passed. And last Congress, we did the exact same thing. And we were told that it wasn't enough, that it wasn't enough, and that it wasn't enough. But it stood up for taxpayers, and we actually got the bills done, unlike these kind of one-size-fits-all policies that are constantly being delayed because no one wants to vote yes on them. And so I think we need to start pushing policies forward that actually have a chance, and then taking bigger and bigger steps as we continue to go forward. That's how you're going to get people bought in. That's how you're going to start inching closer and closer to reversing climate change. And we cannot forget that climate change and environmental problems are global. We all contribute as humans and as different nations to the climate challenge. And if the United States reduced all of its emissions today, it wouldn't matter because there are countries across the ocean in India and China that are rapidly increasing its emissions. And so we need to be doing things here in the United States that are replicable in those countries, that make it economical to fight climate change. And those are the things we need to focus on right here and right now. And a lot of that starts with technology and innovation because we don't have all the solutions yet.
So you expressed earlier, Benji, that you helped Senator Ron Johnson in his campaigns. News came out earlier this year that he mouthed the words, well, they were close to bull spit, I'll say that, in regards to climate change. How do you reconcile with some members of the Republican Party not believing in the science behind climate change?
Well, look, I'll start with the bad and then go to the good. The bad news is that there still are people like Ron Johnson out there who refuse to address the realities of climate change. And as a two-time volunteer to his campaign, I've been incredibly frustrated by the lack of involvement on this issue. Young conservatives in Wisconsin want action on climate change, and most conservatives in Wisconsin in general want action on climate change. And to deny that the problem exists, as Wisconsin is seeing some of the effects of climate change already and losing its voice at the table, I think is really problematic. And there are other people like Ron Johnson out there who haven't been prioritizing this issue or saying the wrong thing. But I think too often we hear about the bad ones and we don't hear about the good. There's a caucus that just formed in Congress, basically a committee that's focused on conservative climate change solutions that already within 2 months has over 1/3 of House Republicans in that caucus. If you would told anyone that there'd be over 1/3 of House Republicans in a climate change focused caucus a few years ago, no one would have believed you. Most of the 2024 presidential potential candidates have been talking about climate change in a really productive way and using conservative leadership on it. You have people like Mike Gallagher in Wisconsin who has been doing a lot on it. So it's not all bad, and there's actually been a lot of great bipartisan action at the federal level. But you're right, conservatives have a long way to go, and we need to keep pushing for conservatives to do more. And if you're a conservative who cares about the environment and doesn't want Wisconsin or northern Wisconsin to be left behind on climate change, you should call up Senator Ron Johnson's office and tell him, I'm a conservative who cares about climate change, and I want you to do something about it because I don't want our voice to be forgotten any longer.
Benji, we're almost out of time here. My final question is, you do a lot of work on climate change. Your life revolves around climate change. How do you stay optimistic? How do you keep being productive?
Look, I actually have a lot of hope. The American carbon emissions numbers are going down, and it's because of technology and innovation and young people who have a passion for this issue, who want to dedicate their life, just like I have, to this issue. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people like me out there. I'm just one person, but the entire movement that's pushing towards this is going to figure it out. There have been so many times throughout history where we've had daunting problems that we didn't think could be solved. This is one of them that will be solved just like the others have been. And people are going to stand together and stand up for our environment across ideological lines and across cultures. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm excited about the technological innovation. And if we were always determining whether we should do something or not do something based off of skepticism of being able to solve the problem, we wouldn't solve any problem. So I'm just proud to be a part of this fight alongside so many others and really use my passion for the environment that came from northern Wisconsin to fuel my fight with my conservative beliefs. It's honestly just a pleasure, and it keeps me hopeful.
Benji Backer, thank you so much. And I will say, Jeff, if you thought Benji was passionate about climate change, you should have seen him on the tennis courts. He would just rip that forehand, give it a good cheer, backhand too. And Benji, we're being silly now. Thank you so much for being on Up North. It was really valuable.
Hey,
to hear
absolutely,
your
and it was such a pleasure to join you. And I'll always remember those days where I was wearing the American flag socks on the tennis court, and you were wearing the American flag bandana, and we were just having a great time. Wish we could relive those days.
Good times. I miss those days as well. Benji, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back after the break.